probably going to go live since you did 3, 2, 1. Let me see.
I did 3, 2, 1 before.
Okay. I don't see you on my screen. This is interesting. Let me just look at my iPad and I'll see if for some reason it's in the app. So you could talk to your people just in case they're there, and you could just say we're having some technical issues.
All right, we're having technical issues trying to make sure that this is going to go forward. It shows that the camera's playing at the top.
Okay, I'm looking on my iPad just to make sure to see. I'm getting there. Looking to see. Okay, you are live on my iPad.
Okay.
For some reason, you're not live, or you were. Do something with like make a OK sign so that I know that this is the current video.
Okay. Can you see me?
It's delayed, so
yeah.
I'm gonna wait to see if I see the OK sign. Okay, I got it. All right, you're live, so you go ahead. We can just say sorry for the technical, but we're gonna go ahead now.
Okay, sorry for the technical. We're going to go ahead now. Not sure what's up with this, but anyway, getting started here, October 9th, 2018. And this is Miss Vicki speaking to you tonight about festivals and a celebration of the cosmos. And tonight we'll cover 3 points as always. The first one is the macro and the microcosm of the universe. And what that means is what goes on in the universe, which means everything in nature, everything outside of us goes on in the inner life, our own inner life as well. And then the second part is that nature reflects our inner life. And if we start to look around with that kind of thinking, we'll start to see and feel it. And the third point is how to honor nature, which is really an important thing in our time, especially when you consider how dishonored Mother Earth has been over all these years and how painful that probably has been for her as a mother. So starting the whole thing, I want to say that beautiful verse by Rudolf Steiner, may my soul bloom in love for all existence. And then to start tonight's tonight's talk, I have 2 verses. I love verses because I love poetry and it's a form of poetry, but it's kind of a mantra type. This one is by Rudolf Steiner as well. And he says, to overcome the illusion that you are a limited human being, think of yourself as a cosmic process. That is the reality. And you will be able to say, I am a breath of the universe. And one of the things I like to tell people when we look at biography, which I really love doing that with people, is that, and part of what Waldorf education does as well in working with the arts and working creatively is the whole time you're working on your own soul. You are the creation, the artistic creation of the universe. So I think that's a beautiful thought. And then this next verse I like to do at this time of year because of what comes out in the person this time of year, and I'll go into that more. It's called Eradication of All Fear. We must eradicate from the soul all fear and terror of what comes towards us out of the future. We must acquire serenity in all feelings and sensibilities concerning the future. We must look forward with absolute equanimity to all that may come, and we must think only that whatever comes is given to us by a world direction full of wisdom. It is part of what we must learn in this age, namely to live out of pure trust without any security in existence. Trust in the new, present help of the spiritual world. Truly, nothing else will do if our courage is not to fail us. Let us discipline ourselves. Let us discipline our will and let us seek the awakening from within ourselves every morning and every evening. So that's a verse that was given today in my class on your little sheet to take home. And it's a verse to do morning and night to help you with the fears of our time. So, oh, dang it. Sorry, got to turn off my phone. So I'm going to show you this chart, which was also put up on the web page or the Facebook page, and hopefully you can see it. There it is. Hopefully that light shows it up well enough. And it's really kind of a diagram of the year. So hopefully you can see that on your Facebook page. And those of you who are in class today have that little chart. I love to use charts. They're a visual aid that really help us. But what you saw on that chart is this, what's called a lemniscate. It's a figure 8. And at the top of the lemniscate is summer. And at the bottom is winter. And on the left side is autumn. And on the right side, spring. And what that chart shows is kind of a visual picture of what happens during the year. Now, I like to start at this time of year when we start the school year, which is at autumn, the Michaelmas. And that's when the equinoxes are, the autumn and the spring equinoxes are the time of balance. And what this is a picture of is what happens with the breathing process for the Mother Earth and the universe and for us inwardly. So if you start in the spring and you go out to summer, what you see is that we're exhaling all the way out to the farthest reaches of the universe. And the height of that is the summer solstice. And then it comes down to the Michaelmas time. And the Michaelmas time is the equinox, which is a balance time. So in your soul, at summer, you're as far out as you're going to go. And if you think about how you are in the summer, you're just, at least I am. I'm definitely so far out there, just out and very dreamy, not thinking a lot, just real dreamy. And then as you start to come in and you reach the equinox of Michaelmas in September, then you're at a more balanced phase. And then you start towards the winter time, which is where we are right now. And you can see that in our weather. We're in this very chilly, humid, and it brings you in, makes you start to just come in to the dark time. And so this is, at least in what's happening in nature, this is what's happening in the Northern Hemisphere. It's completely flipped in the Southern Hemisphere, and I'm not going to go into the complexities of any of that. I'm only going to speak about where we are. But anyway, when you come in, you go to the darkest days till you get to the winter. And at the winter, you're the most inward that you will get. And it's the time of the deepest thinking. And in Waldorf education, teachers always notice that after the winter solstice, when the children come back from break, that they're the most ripe and ready for learning that they will be during the year. And it has to do with what happens when you feel such an inner space. So you go through the deepest, darkest days of winter, and then you come back up to the spring equinox when you're at a balance point again. And so Mother Earth is breathing in and out, and the whole universe breathes. You may have heard of this, but they're called yugas. They're great periods of time. It takes 29,000 plus years for the whole universe to breathe out and in. And our solar system takes a year to breathe out and in. For us, we breathe out and in all the time. So it's awake and asleep, awake and asleep. So the sleep kind of mimics that breathing process of going into the sleep and the waking process. So let's go back to this, what happens during these times. Yeah, when you start to think about how the earth that's happening with the earth, what you see in the fall time is that as the days grow darker, it appears that nature dies here anyway. And the leaves are falling. They're so glorious right now. I mean, the soul is at such a beautiful, intense time. And all the fruits, it's just a time of plenty. And it's starting to just go into the darkest days. So as the darkness comes, the children tend to be more frightened. Everyone has more anxiety. And I think days of old, people had anxieties because you're preparing for the winter, you're preparing for the darkest days. And what that preparation has to do with is that in the outer world, it appears that everything is dying, but in reality, Mother Earth and nature are awake at an inner soul level. And for us, at our soul level, we start to get ready to come to that deepest, darkest part of the year when we have real strong inner reflections. And you think about the new year when people do the, what do you call that? The New Year's pledge. I forget what it's called. But anyway, that's all about contemplating who you are and what you want to become and what you're willing to shed. Because every year it's like the little snake, you have to shed some part of your soul to help birth the new you in a certain way. So as we come into this darkest time of the year, all the celebrations are about light. And that essentially is it. So look at this chart. And by the way, Patrick Long Kirsch did such a fine job of the version online that you can really read it, unlike the one that I did in writing. But the first one after Michaelmas, Michaelmas is September 29th. Michaelmas is the celebration of Michael, who is the great archangel who helps Waldorf education, who helps humanity to come to a place where we realize we are all one. We're all children of the Creator. It really is that simple. And everything is a child of the Creator. All the trees, all the flowers, all the fruits are all part of the Creator. And so Michael helps to awaken us to that. And we spoke about it a little bit last week or week before, whenever, about Michael and how they create celebrations in the Waldorf school that depict Michael and the horse and the blessing of the elements and so on. And also the gathering of the fruits and vegetables. Michael is involved with ripening the fruits and vegetables. And so the gathering of those and the gratitude and wonder and awe that all of this has come to us. And if you live on a farm like we do, or have any, experience of farmers markets and so on, it just is mind-boggling how abundant nature is. It's such a huge blessing. Yeah, and we definitely experienced it today, eating fruits all over the place, everywhere we walked, really. Even raspberries still, it was delightful. So that's Michaelmas. And then you head to Halloween. Now, Halloween is one of those celebrations that really has been perverted through commercialism and through materialism. In days of old, it was a celebration for those who understood it, that there was light. And the light, to begin with, is it used to be turnips and different vegetables, but now we do it in pumpkins for the most part. So the light and the pumpkin. But really, Halloween is a celebration of what's called All Souls Day and All Saints Day. And what that means is Mother Earth inhales all the beings that have participated in the life of the earth, maintain a connection to us always. All our ancestors, all of the great saints and beautiful people that have helped us along and continue to help us along, come close at that time of year. They come close at a soul level to really help us as we go into these darkest times. So All Souls Day is when the ancestors come. And at that time, you can just appreciate your ancestors and think about your ancestors, the ones that you know and ones that you've heard of, the family stories and so on, and really feel gratitude to them. They participate in your soul life in a very big way. And you can start to experience that when you open your soul to that thought. And so there's your All Souls Day. It's all the ancestors for all of us. And then All Saints Day is those elevated beings, the ascended masters, those who are thought of as saints, that really left a legacy of something wonderful that they did for the earth. And they're here once again to glorify existence, to bring us joy and gratitude and wonder and feelings of contentment and sensibility, and just help us along, especially now. The world's in a bit of a troubled state. We all are in a little bit of a troubled state, trying to work our way evolutionary wise into a more deep experience of the spiritual world. So that's Halloween. And I hope next week to put the puppet show that I've been doing, which shares with you that what they've done to Halloween is not right. All the evil that's portrayed is not right. That is not what Halloween is about at all. And it's really not what a young child needs to experience of it. It needs to be a time of great beauty with angels and higher beings. So anyway, that's Halloween, and I'll drop that one till now until I speak about the puppet show specifically. So then we come to the Lantern Walk, also in Waldorf school called St. Martinmas. Now, the Lantern Walk is light in a lantern, something made by human hands that has the light. And St. Martinmas was an amazing being. In second grade Waldorf school, you study the saints, and often he is one of them. And St. Martinmas was a Roman soldier who was, pretty heartless and just a regular cruel soldier. And one day, this time of year in November 11th, he was riding his horse, and he came under a bridge, a viaduct, and there was a poor man with no clothing, freezing and starving. So he took his cape and he cut it in half, and he wrapped it around the man. And the man really was the Christ in disguise, which is a bit of a imagery of how we all have the Christ. We all have the higher being within us. So experiencing that for St. Martinmas transformed him. His whole life was transformed, and he began to go about helping everyone and seeing the Christ in everyone. And he was such an elevated being that everywhere he went, because of his purity and his joy and his generosity and so on, the elemental world would respond to him in the most beneficial ways. So when he passed, and this was in France, when he passed, his body was put on a barge on the river, and rather than floating downstream, it floated upstream. And it was November 11th, cold, bare branches. And as the barge went by, and the stream was, or the river was lined with people that adored him and appreciated him. And as the barge went by, all the trees burst into bloom, because nature loved him so much, returning the love that he had given to the elemental beings. And so in Europe, and a lot of Waldorf traditions in the United States, not necessarily other countries, and they may celebrate the Lantern Walk in their own way without necessarily recognizing St. Martin. But the Lantern Walk is a time when you come together in the cold around a fire. We have so much fun here doing it with horses in the field, and then you get your lanterns and you go out singing, and you just walk in a circle, and then you stand and you sing and hear stories and come back to the fire, have popcorn and cider and so on. And and celebrate the wonder. And it is such a beautiful time of year, no matter what the weather is doing. I remember one year we had a giant full moon, but every year is special. There's some event, a lot of stars, one year a lot of wind, and just being out there in nature is such an awe-inspiring experience. I recommend it for everyone. And to take the children on special occasions out at night where they really can see the moon and the stars. So that's the lantern walk. And then, of course, by American tradition, we have the Thanksgiving, a time of gratitude for all of our abundance, and a time of family and friends sharing. And then we go into this, we go into the season of the Advent, which is a 4-week celebration. Now, that 4-week celebration is a celebration of the levels of being for all of us, starting with the mineral. So you celebrate the life of the minerals. And the verse says, the first light of Advent is the light of stones, stones that live in seashells, crystals, and bones. So all of those, our bones represent our physical being. Our physical being has to do with the mineral level. And so when Mother Earth is breathing back in, and what is she breathing back in? She's breathing back in these amazing cosmic powers, not just the power of the sun. The sun is a transformer that kind of steps down in the same way that an electric transformer box does. All the cosmic energies, a lot of cosmic energies are coming to us, and particularly coming to us now because we're meant to be evolving in our consciousness. We're meant to be becoming better people. We're meant to be more awake spiritually. And so, you know, it's from the great central sun, it's from all kinds of stars out there that beam, and science is discovering more and more all these elements that come to us, even the stardust, and they all carry very inspiring energies, and the energy of love, the energy of joy, the energy of healing, and so on and so forth. So all that comes in with Mother Earth as she inhales. It all comes into us. And remember, at Michaelmas time, I spoke about how there's the great meteor showers, the Leonid showers that come in with all the iron, the meteoric iron, the homeopathic iron. So in all of these things, there's homeopathic principles, homeopathic healing principles that come into us. So that's what comes in the first week of Advent. And then the second week of Advent comes to the level of the plants. And the plants represent our life body. And those cosmic energies come in a way that for the plants, they are in the process of giving forces through the gnomes and the other elementals to the seeds. And the seeds are such a powerful picture of what a plant will be. And really, that's what goes on in our soul life. And our heart is a very powerful picture of what we will become as we strive to meet our divine destiny in life. So that happens the second week of Advent. The second week of Advent is the life of plants, plants that reach up to the sun and in the breezes dance. And during that week, we celebrate Santa Lucia. Santa Lucia was a Swedish saint who loved children and dedicated herself to the life of children who were in need, basically. So in the Waldorf classroom, in second grade, the oldest girl will wear a crown of candles, and the class makes cookies, and they go around singing and serving cookies to all the other classes. And once again, it's all about bringing light and bringing generosity and joy and gratitude to everyone. So then the third week of Advent is the light of the animal realm. The third week of Advent is the light of beasts, the light of hope that we may see in greatest and in least. So for us, that cosmic light and cosmic energy arrives in our astral body, our life of soul, our life of passion and desire, and all of our emotions and feelings, and our higher ideals as well. So, yeah, and for the young child, they experience it a little bit differently because I think I mentioned this in the talk before, but I definitely will down the line, that a child has their physical body in the first 7 years. The etheric body, the life body, is still birthing, as the organs are still forming. And that life of the astral body really only arrives out of the higher realms at 14 years old, or around 14. Nothing is like carved in stone 14 years to the day. It's around about time. And so then the fourth level of the Advent is the light of the human being. Let me see if I can say it out of order. The fourth light of Advent is the light of man, the light of hope that we may grow to love and understand. And so Mother Earth has breathed in at such a deep level that we can experience it in our soul, this awakening to love, really. And, you know, it's such a wonderful time for family and friends to be together and celebrate this darkness and have all our wonderful traditions. And the thing that has always interested me is that it is not just Christianity that celebrates this way, that all of the traditions have some sort of celebration of light at this darkest time of year. So that is really the essence of it, that it's a celebration of light, the celebration of the light that lives in each and every one of us in our own soul. And so that, I think, is a really powerful thing for all of us to understand, that every person on this earth has that light of the Creator in us. And that's what we're meant to grow, to appreciate in one another, and to stop seeing all our faults and our mistakes and so on and so forth, and focus more on the light that is in each and every one of us. So that's the 4 weeks of Advent. Quite a lovely time. And it is said in some of the deeper studies that Rudolf Steiner did, that during the, so there's what's called the 12 Holy Nights. And that is a period of time that starts Christmas Eve, and it goes 12 days and nights. And I forget what date that puts you up to, but each one of those days is a reflection of a month of the year. And that if you watch your inner soul life and you watch your dream life and you contemplate what the quality of that day is, that you'll have an inkling of what will happen to you in that month of that year. So anyway, during that time, we're contemplating, here I am, this is what happened to me during this year. This is what I accomplished. These are the mistakes I made. These are my goals, all of that. And you make resolutions. That's what it is, the New Year's resolution. But what that has to do with more than just, I'll stop drinking or smoking or whatever, is what part of your soul will you awaken and work on for that next year? And, that has a lot to do with your age, your biography, your 7-year stages, and so on. But nonetheless, it's a time of just great reflection on what you would like to see bloom in your own life during that year. So then you're starting after the winter solstice. Right away, the days start to get longer, just a little bit at a time. And then you come up to, in February, there's something called Candlemas. That is a time when Mother Earth is starting to breathe out, and we are starting to breathe out. And if you're a gardener and you go out into the garden and you look at the soil and you handle the soil, you can see the microorganisms start to have more life. The soil just has more life because of what's happening to Mother Earth and her relationship to the universe, to the sun especially, but as I said before, to many other bodies in the universe. And so Candlemas is a time to bless the candles, to bless the light, and be grateful for the light, for having made it through the darkest days, and for having candles to bring light to you. And we're going into the springtime when we're going to come up to the equinox. Now, for adults, the springtime is about really, coming to terms with some part of you that needs to go to be left behind. We all have neurosis issues, subconscious issues, whatever you want to call them. They're stored in the cells of our body. They come from our childhood, from birth. They even come from past lives, but they live in the cells of our bodies, and they always speak to us back here where we don't really hear them, and they make us do repetitive actions, repetitive emotions that we don't necessarily understand. And I hope to go into that a little more. I'd like to talk more about boundaries for children in the future, since I had so many questions come up after the last talk. Anyway, we're like an onion. We have skin, like I said before, we're little snakes. We just have to shed things in ourselves and forgive ourselves. It's mainly about forgiveness and really learning to love ourselves, and not fool ourselves, but be willing to let parts of us go that don't serve us anymore. They served us in the past, but it doesn't serve us now. So that's what Easter time is for the adult. For the child, it's the picture of all the little flowers coming out, and the eggs, and the baby chicks, and the baby ducklings, and life and rebirth. But for the adult, we understand that life and rebirth involves letting go and dying away and coming back in a fresher space, a new model of us. And let's see, there was some little thing I wanted to say about that. Yeah. Oh, and Mother Earth. So in the wintertime, in the darkest days, Mother Earth is busy bringing the most light. She's the most awake, filled with light, recharging the seeds so that a seed this big can become a giant redwood tree, for instance, or a sunflower seed can become those giant sunflowers, so on and so forth. There's a lot of light that Mother Earth brings to all the seeds and to us as well. And so as she comes into the spring, she becomes more dreamy like we are. And Steiner says that all the flowers that bloom, all the radiance of glorious spring and summer is Mother Earth dreaming, and dreaming what will come to her during the year. And so that's what the children experience. And it's a very wonderful thing to be outside with children all through the year, really. I can't even tell you how, now they talk about nature therapy for children. And in Japan, they have forest therapy where you take people outside and help them come to a relationship with Mother Earth, because Mother Earth has a heartbeat. It's a Hertz energy. It's an electrical energy. And we all need to beat at that rate, but we don't all beat at that rate. We beat at the rate of electricity and microwaves and so on, which is interferes a great amount with our health and our mental health and our soul health. So to get out into nature really helps you to breathe with Mother Earth, which is a very steady beat and a very healthful beat. But not only that, with children, in my written intro today, I spoke about Goethean Science. You can see that children practice Goethean Science if you watch them, and they see a little bug. A roly-poly is a momentous event. Why is that? Because they experience the higher beings who made it. They experience the wisdom embodied in everything in nature, and they feel it at a deep soul level, so they can just stop and appreciate it and love it. And yeah, so that's one of the great benefits also of being in Mother Nature, not to mention that you're breathing all this fresh air and getting the vitamin D, and the sun doesn't only give us vitamin D, they're starting to name all the other supposed vitamins, they call them, but they're properties that come from the sun to give us health. So that's the springtime. And then you go into the summer, up to the summer solstice, St. John's time. And, Waldorf community, the more established Waldorf communities, for instance, like Camp Hill communities, which are the therapeutic communities, they at St. John's time, everyone comes together for a great potluck, cooking all the wonderful foods that are grown on the farms, and they have a giant bonfire. And the bonfire burns and burns and burns, and they stand around and they contemplate what part of themselves are they willing to give up? Are they willing to forgive? Are they willing to have transformed? And they write it down on a piece of paper. And then when the fire gets low enough that you're brave enough to jump over it, then you throw this piece of paper with the thoughts of what you want to transform in yourself into the fire. And you jump over and you let it go. And you can think of yourself, your soul, being at the farthest reaches of the universe where it can actually experience the most transformation in the light of the universe. And light is love. And so that's where I'm going to stop tonight. I did want to say, though, that the way I got into Waldorf education, really, when I was young, way back when, my first two children were young, and I found Rudolf Steiner for my daughter, who I wanted to have an education that I felt nourished her soul. And I just, the angels led me to Rudolf Steiner, and I started studying him. And my first connection was to the festivals, because I wanted to bring something beautiful, something really meaningful to them in our celebrations. I just didn't like what the modern culture gave to Christmas, and just the basic holidays, they're called, which really means holy days, but we're not really celebrating the holiness of them. Or at that time I wasn't, and I wanted to bring something holy to those celebrations. So that's how I started, and I started by making all the crafts and everything associated with it, and the songs and the verses. And over the years, that tradition just continued, and it was such a deep and wonderful experience. And it evolves as your children get older, and just to suit the needs of them as they mature. And I really encourage everyone to do that. So I'm going to wait and see if there may be comments from the group listening, and encourage you, if you have questions that this stirs up in you, whether it happens the night that you're listening or you're watching the YouTube later on or whatever, let me know. Let Angeline know. I love to speak to what people really are interested in, what answers their questions. Yeah, the question is, how do the rituals and traditions help the young children gain a sense of time, since they're not aware of time? Yeah, very, very beautiful point. The children come out of eternity. We all come out of eternity, which is not time, and it is not space. So having the rituals of the festivals help them to mark time. This is the spring. This is the summer. This is the autumn. This is the winter. And you're 1 year old, and so on every year. And the same thing with your day. This is breakfast. That's how we celebrate breakfast. This is lunch. That's how that's celebrated. This is dinner. And it used to be that people had rhythms that carry them through the week. Mondays is when you, for instance, washed the laundry, or Tuesdays you went to town and picked up your post your mail and so on. So every day had a certain quality. And in the Waldorf kindergartens and preschools, that's what happens. Every day is marked in a certain way. So it is a way to help children begin to understand and experience time. Yeah, which really helps them with their incarnation. It's just a necessity when you come into a body to understand time. So let me see. I think there's another question coming up here. Hmm. Um, yeah, the outer experience of the weather. Well, that's what I was saying about being outside, especially. Um, they don't have a sense of space either. That's why they invade each other's space and take each other's toys, because they don't have any sense of this is me and that's you, and this is where I stand and that's where you stand. And so going into nature, I believe, really helps to develop observation skills, not just your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth. There's so many parts of our being, and they have more parts of their being actively working than we do, because we were more or less taught to stifle it. And so when they go out and they experience the tree, they really start to experience space in a very, very different way, especially when they're climbing it and they're using their muscles, or they're swinging from the tree and so on and so forth, that they really have a deep experience of space and the processes of life, which are so incredible. They're so filled with wisdom that can just speak to us. So, yeah. Let's see if we have another question. I think there may be one other coming up. Oh, what can we do in our home to help with the celebrating these festivals and stories? Well, you know, I really believe everyone has to find their own way into that, because everyone has different religions. For instance, if you come from a Jewish family or a Buddhist family or whatever other religions there are, you really have to kind of create your own way about it. But if you understand that picture of what's happening outwardly in nature and what's happening inward, then you can enliven it that way. But I will tell you, in our family, and one of the traditions is at Advent time. And I think this is really, not religious in the sense of Christian, but the 4 weeks of Advent. The first one, the celebration of mineral. So I have this brass candelabra. I don't do the wreath. I do this candelabra where the candles are, and the greens are about it. And so each night you say the verses and the songs and light the one candle. And then all of the minerals and the seashells and the bones and everything that represents the mineral world appears. And if you want to give your children gifts, that's a good time to give them little crystals and so on. And then the week of the plants, that a plant appears or plants appear, and the second light is lit, and so on and so forth. The third week, little animals. When my children were young, I gave them the little glass animals, and we have that in our celebration in class too. Some of the little animals, the little doggies, for instance. And then the fourth week with the candle being lit. And some people use the Advent calendar, which every day it gets marked. So there's many ways to bring it into your home. And I just believe you have to really consider yourself, what's in the context of your own religious beliefs and your own family beliefs. But if you do it in a regular way, on a regular basis, that means something to your child. And yeah, there's the Hanukkah candles. What a beautiful celebration. So any way that you can celebrate the light at that time of year. So that's all I could say about that, because I do believe it's really, really personal. And I do believe that as a culture, we really need to enliven it with our own soul experiences and get away from what our culture does, which, Christmas is buy, 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 gifts, gifts, gifts. And that isn't a celebration of what's going on. So, yeah. Yeah. And stories, there's some very, very beautiful books of stories. Yeah, I have quite a lot of them in my library, and people can come by and use that. So it looks like we've come to the end, and I just wanted to say that I've had the suggestion that 7:30 is too early, that the children aren't quite in bed enough, and that we should perhaps shift to 8 o'clock, which I think we will do next week. And rather than saying an hour, I think we can say a half hour, 45 minutes. It doesn't need that long. I like to bring things in digestible pieces, not big lumps. So we'll say 8 o'clock and no more than 45 minutes, if that long at all. So that was the last of the questions. And thank you for those of you who are visiting. And let me see who that is visiting. Aha. Thank you for the love. And let's close with that beautiful verse about love. May my soul bloom in love for all existence, by Rudolf Steiner. And we love you too. Thanks. Bye-bye.